Good morning, traders. It is Monday, January 27th. Taking a look at the charts, we got some pretty wild price action today. We've got a big kind of tech wipeout happening with more or less that China DeepSeek AI coming out. People talking about it's being the #1 download on Apple apps. It's free. It's lower cost. It runs on low-cost chips. And it is wreaking havoc for the tech space, especially the AI space, with Nvidia down almost 15% at one point, which I'll show a chart of shortly. But overall, lots of panic, lots of going on in the tech space. Also, Trump, rattling the markets overseas with kind of sweeping tariffs with Colombia and all that stuff kind of coming through, and we got treasuries rallying. We've got the bond market. If we take a look at bonds, they're up about 1% this morning, having a pop for safety, and the Chinese economy activity is kind of faltering and struggling after all of the stimulus that they've done. So we're definitely seeing some worries here, and people are wondering, when they look at the tech space, there's about $15 trillion added to the Nasdaq since 2022 with like kind of the AI kind of bubble, and now the DeepSeek AI comes out, and people are saying it's just as good as ChatGPT, and wondering if the U.S. actually has control over AI, has the dominant space in there, or if China is going to swoop in and have something better. So anyways, let's kind of run through the markets of what's going on. So more or less, the Nasdaq is down the most. Here's the Nasdaq futures here. You can see we're starting to bounce off the bottom on the daily chart. If we look at the 10-minute chart in the lower right-hand corner, it kind of closed on Friday, and then over the last session and a half, or last day and a half, more or less, of futures trading, we've seen it sell off, have quite a drop. We saw a couple levels, significant pivot lows of the market kind of get broken. If we pull up the 30-minute chart and just throw a horizontal line, we have a pivot level right through here, got a significant pivot level here, and we've got this pivot low right here as well. So overall, the market kind of has been selling off. Obviously, there's all these other pivot lows through here, these two as well, but we're really starting to pick up speed right down here. This standout low is fairly significant for the market, and as soon as it broke that low, you can see stops just got hit, and the volume really picked up, and we saw a waterfall sell-off, and usually that means we're getting close. It also pierced this other one with a big volume spike where there will be stops set, and then it's usually as soon as everyone gets stopped out, the market rebounds and shoots higher, cleansing the market. Now the market is set to open still sharply lower. Obviously, gaps, as we know, to the downside tend to get filled. Gaps on both sides, whether up or down. So this is going to be a big gap to the downside. It's news driven, so we'll see how that unfolds. If we take a look at the QQQ, we actually have a price spike, which I haven't covered in a long time, but typically when we have a price spike, we can see that spike level get hit. Usually I look at a third, 0.5%, or half of the move and 100% of the move as the three potential targets. And it's a gap down, and it fills the gap. So it'll be very interesting to see how today's news-driven kind of gap and selling hits, and if we see panic selling on our 30-minute panic selling indicator as well. Now, I've been talking about how Bitcoin is more or less attached to the growth stock space, like the QQQ. Really, Bitcoin has, I don't think, a whole lot to do with crypto. With AI so much. If we look at Bitcoin, it's actually down 5% this morning, having a pretty good haircut. It tends to move with panic selling with the growth stocks. It's the same group of people, speculative people wanting to make money. And when they get scared, they sell everything, including Bitcoin. And when there's mass panic selling, we see like everything sell off, including safe havens like gold and things like that. So there isn't really always a safe haven, but today's a news-driven move. So the biggest move down is in the Nasdaq, tech heavy. But if we go and we look at the other indexes, the Russell 2000 is only down about 0.8%, very small this morning. If we zoom in a little bit more, the Dow is only down 0.6%. So it's obviously not that tech heavy. And the SP 500 is down about 2% at this point. It's pretty sharp still for the SP 500, but overall it was down about almost 3%, I think, at one point, and it's rebounded and having a bit of a bounce. So the markets are trying to recover here into the closing bell. Bargain hunters stepping in, people who love to buy every dip and see this as a news move, accumulating shares and starting to pick things up as they're looking oversold. So if we kind of go the other spectrum from technology, we go to, there's three sectors that are actually doing all right this morning. Consumer staples. So it's up fairly sharply this morning for this sector. Obviously, toothpaste, toilet paper, all that stuff. When there's chaos, people want to move into a defensive sector. And no matter what happens, we're still going to need that stuff. So consumer staples are up. Healthcare is also up in pre-market as a defensive play. Again, not tied to technology so much. And then real estate. People get nervous about technology stocks and things like that. They move to real estate and it's trading a little bit higher. So those are kind of the three kind of old school basic foundations of more or less life. And they're all doing, holding up while everybody's flocking away or moving away from the tech space, the AI space. If we go take a look at energy real quick, we have crude oil down 0.6%. It has been fizzling out after a little while. We had a couple big pops and moves to the upside. A couple of them were based on news, and so now all that's starting to fizzle out. So we'll see how that unfolds over the next little bit when we zoom out on oil. You can see it's still making a series of overall lower highs, lower lows, and again, I think the economy is slowly coming to a grinding halt. China has like stalled out. No matter how much money they dump at it, it's just not even turning. And I think all that's going to eventually bleed over to the U.S. and we'll see weakness there. Now let's just take a look over at, let's take a look at the hot list real quick. We get the RK ETF. Top of the list, it is set to open lower this morning. If we take a look at where it closed from yesterday, it's down roughly about 3%. Semiconductors obviously getting hit with all the AI chips, all the base with the AI side, down about 6%, was down almost 9% at one point this morning. And of course, Bitcoin is down about 5%. But let's take a look at the Magnificent Seven because they are overall heavy weighting and pulling the Nasdaq down. If we look at Nvidia, I'll just flip to a 1440-minute chart, which will kind of show us the pre-market activity here. You can see a pretty big drop for Nvidia and taking a big hit, lots of volume trading. And people wondering, do you need an expensive Nvidia chip if, China's got it figured out with low-cost chips and can produce something equally or better than what we have in the United States. So that is the big question. That's where money's getting wiped out of the market. If we take a look at Microsoft, obviously they're pretty big in the AI space. It had a big hit this morning, sold off. It's rebounding fairly quickly as well. Apple shares just haven't performed very well for a while. They just keep selling off. They've definitely, I think, lost they have leadership still, but they're giving back market share. They're losing market share in the phone space and all of that. And I think it's just not, doesn't have that huge potential that it used to have unless they come out with something new. And I don't know what's going on with their AI. Even if they have one, they are way behind the ball. They better knock it out of the park when they do step into that arena. If we take a look at Google, Google down sharply, Amazon, again, all of these, pretty much most stocks are down. They have all had a big panic wave of selling, and they're all starting to rebound here. Meta, the same. It's rebounded and almost recovered everything so far. And then we have Tesla, which is down as well, about 4 or 5%. So overall, markets are struggling. It's everybody's dumping technology today, and they're moving away from that space and into consumer staples, healthcare, real estate, which we saw a wave of this last week as well. I touched on this in one of the videos where we see money sloshing from really small caps or growth stocks one day, and then they're over into these other defensive sectors the next day. So money's definitely all over the place trying to figure out what to do. When we take a look at the long-term picture, the weekly chart of the S&P 500, we go in the rising tide environment, falling tide environment, and we are still in a bullish environment. The markets are pulling back a little bit today. The S&P 500's down about 2%. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. The market is shaking things up. It shows how sensitive people are. One piece of news comes out and the Nasdaq fell almost 5% in pre-market or overnight trading last night. It's starting to rebound, all because of an AI is leading the way on the from China, on the Apple boards of the most downloaded, and that it works really well. So it's definitely questioning the AI space and how quickly these markets can move with one little piece of data. So we got, I think, lots of news rolling out this week in terms of what's going on with some economic data in the markets. And we got the Fed decision rate on Wednesday. So lots going on, and we just have to let the market shake things up. This is what they do, especially in a rising market. They try to buck you off. Some of the sharpest pullbacks happen in a rising trend. Some of the sharpest rallies happen in a falling trend. So this is how the market shakes people up. We'll just have to see how this unfolds. And of course, we have lots of wild cards. Trump in there is just dishes out the wild cards. You never know what's going to happen every day, and that keeps everybody on their toes. But overall, we follow the money, follow the trends, try not to get shaken up on news, and ride the trends for what they are. Anyways, that's it for now. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.